fellow humans, Cybertronians, and other aliens alike. My name is Kai. Happy Halloween, by the way. And I got a story for you. This comic was published in the year 2021, and it is called Transformers Halloween, a perfect story for this occasion. Now, the cover on this depicts Starscream morphing into an organic, almost wolf-like being. Now, I love the purple and blues used in this contrast with the green and pink eyes in this cover. But the cover is nothing like the story hidden inside.
We begin in the city of Icon, a beautiful city recently liberated by the Decepticons. They vowed to protect the people of the city, even the organic beings who do not belong to Cybertron. We see Starscream interacting with some of these organic beings while on his way to meet with Lord Megatron. Rumors state that the Autobots are hiding in the hills and valley, planning a counter-revolution. To flesh out this potential threat, it has been decided that a hunting party would be assembled. The hunts would be done publicly, to show the public that Decepticons will protect them. Whoever leads this hunting party would quickly be regarded as a hero of the revolution. Starscream eavesdrops on Megatron and Six-Shot's conversation, hoping to be granted this opportunity to be that hero of the revolution. Megatron has already decided on Starscream being the leader of the hunting party. Hearing this news, Starscream is very excited by this. But Six-Shot questions Lord Megatron's decisions and counters his argument by insinuating that Starscream's views may be more for his own well-being than for Cybertron. Starscream is insulted but continues to listen. Megatron brings up Starscream's old mentor, Kryrak, bringing up the fact that he never met anybody more in love with Cybertron. She would often take Starscream with her when she would go explore Cybertron's unknown reasons. Kryrak was injured in an accident, and instead of being healed, she chose to be returned to the planet. Megatron concludes that that type of dedication is needed for the Decepticons. Six-Shot responds by saying Starscream seeing such extreme beliefs could have melted his mind and caused him to start focusing more on himself than on Cybertron. Six-Shot questions what Starscream is really like. Megatron turns wary at this question, deciding sending Starscream would be too much trouble and chooses to send Soundwave instead. Starscream's anger overflows and causes him to punch a hole into the wall before storming out of the building. Starscream is met by Runamuck and Runabout. They hastily run to Starscream, yelling that the old myth is true. After some convincing, they tell Starscream what they saw and what they think it was. They explain that while they were on a scouting mission on the edge of the D-Space, they start hearing screaming. They tell Starscream of the old myth of the ghost that screams in the waste, the disembodied spark trapped forever without a body, looking to steal the shell of any Cybertronian who wanders near. Starscream suggests that it could be the Autobots using the myth to keep the Decepticon troops from finding their hideout, and seeing the guilt and fear build in Runamuck and Runabout, Starscream decides to go investigate the ghost. They question Starscream going on his own, but Starscream quickly rebuttals by saying Kryrak used to take him out to the waste all the time. He knows the terrain better than anyone, saying it would be better to send him than a clumsy army. And when he did find those Autobots, no one would question his loyalty again. As we see Starscream travel to and through the waste, we get a narration from an unknown voice, until it's revealed that it was Kryrak telling us this story the whole time. And it wasn't long until Starscream heard the first scream. Quickly collecting himself, he continues and soon finds a trapped organic. Starscream sees the wire attached to the creature's head was tangled in a tree. Starscream goes to free the creature, and while he does, we get Kryrak narrates, wondering what Starscream is really like. When Starscream touches the wire, he is shocked, and his body and the beast starts to glow. Starscream wakes up in the beast's body. He investigates his new body. He begins to panic despite his efforts not to. But after seeing his fallen body, he realizes that his spark is trapped in the beast's body, not him himself. While this is happening, we get a narration again from Kryrak, telling us how the Cybertronian is not their shell, but is their spark and spark alone. While Starscream panics, he notices the beast's rapidly beating heart. He collects himself enough to realize that he can see his spark in the beast's brain. Kryrak narrates that Starscream is going the wrong way, only to find out that Starscream can hear her. And according to Kryrak instructions, Starscream imagines himself his own body. And it wasn't until Starscream asks who Kryrak was that she reveals himself to her after all these years. After the initial shock, Kryrak explains to Starscream how she became trapped in the beast. She says after the lead fall that damaged her body, she was certain that was Primus's message to return to him. She was so excited. She had wondered so much of the surface of this planet. Now she was to become part of it, where she belonged. She found a glad in the waste, and it seemed the perfect place to return to Primus. She laid herself down, and she finally felt at peace. She laid there for cycles until her spark began to EBB from her. She could feel it being diffused through the cables of the waste down into Primus's living corpse. And the ape came. She didn't know how it got there, but it became tangled and it was desperate. It chewed through the cables her spark flowed through, and she became trapped in the ape. She also explains she has been making the beast howl, hoping somebody would come. She never realized that she was keeping people away until Starscream spilled some of his thoughts and memories, and she realized that she was the old myth, the disembodied spark. She laughs, realizing that they're not wrong. Starscream is relieved to see Kryrak. He says she could help him get back to his body, and he could help her get back to Primus, if that's what she really wanted. She says that she could find Starscream's body, but not for him to go back to, but for her to take. To a shocked Starscream, Kryrak explains her crazed theory. She says she understands that it was a mistake for Cybertronians to ever take on a bipedal form. She questions why they would ever mimic organic shapes when there was no need. Kryrak says once she travels through the cables, she'll go to Starscream's body, and she will use his cannons and bring all the Cybertronians she can back to Primus before anyone can stop her. She explains in detail how she will rid them of those horrid legs and arms. This scares Starscream to the core, pleading with Kryrak not to do this, saying he won't allow it. But Kryrak simply says she was his mentor. These concepts shouldn't scare him. Starscream finally breaks, frustrated with people thinking they know him so well. They fight through the ape's body, while the race to Starscream's body begins. Crarak, knowing the beast's body better, Starscream is able to get the upper hand, and he escapes to his body. He speaks through the beast to Crarak. He says he could kill the ape, atomizing her spark, or he could find a way to return her to Primus like she always wanted. But the myth of the disembodied voice is a part of Cybertron. He leaves Crarak, not wanting to destroy a part of Cybertron. Crarak understands. Starscream truly does love Cybertron. He loves it enough that he wouldn't even want to destroy one of its old myths. This answers the question what Starscream is truly like. Crarak realizes that Starscream will leave her and never return, and never tell anybody what he found. Once she realizes this, the ghost of the waste, the disembodied spark, begins to scream. The screams echo as Starscream leaves the waste, never to return.
And that's the end of the story. Now, this story is pretty interesting. From the fact that there are organics on Cybertron, and this is obviously early during the war because we see Starscream still has his Cybertronian jet mode. And the fact that that Cybertron is so big that there are parts of Cybertron that normal everyday Cybertronians don't know exist, such as the waste that Crarak takes Starscream to when he was younger. And another thing that I find very interesting is how they build up the myth. Yeah, they say that yes, this is the myth of Cybertron, that there's a sparkless being in the waste that screams and is looking for your shell. Technically, they are right. Crarak was looking to steal Starscream's shell body to hopefully take anybody she could to Primus, which is pretty twisted, and I like how they went really dark with that concept. And how, but it was a little bit different. The fact that it wasn't a Cybertronian yelling, it was one of the organics that have gotten lost yelling. And that I just find that very interesting. And also, we get a kind of a look into Starscream himself. Starscream's arrogant, he's egotistical, and he wants to be the best that there ever was. But he is still, a person. He feels things. He's not getting upset for some random reason. He's getting upset for a justifiable reason. Like when Megatron says, well, maybe it's too much trouble sending him, so I'll just send Soundwave, because Soundwave's a lot less trouble. And, Starscream generally gets angry. He has a reason to be angry because Six Shot just basically just said, well, Starscream has the tendency to act out, and I don't think he actually likes Cybertron. So on accusations, Starscream loses his chance to become a potential war hero. And it's very obvious that this sort of theme of what Starscream really like. Does he actually like Cybertron, or is this for his own self benefit? And it turns out that he really wants to make Cybertron better, and that's interesting to me. And yes, the story is very simple. There's not big tons of conflict. Even though there is a big fight at the end that is the climax, the race to the body, which I felt was a little shorter. It could have been drawn out more. And the visuals in this is amazing. It's very it's not simplistic, but there's a lot less. It's a lot more. Soft. It's not as. I don't know how to describe it. But what I mean by soft is that it's childlike in a way, not childlike, but more it's simple. It's simpler than most comics that you see from the Transformers art, and it actually does really work for the story because it is supposed to be a simple story, so you have simple art in this. And the visuals are really good in this as well, showing the waist. By the way, I love how Kryrak looks. Like the fact that she's like still Cybertronian, but you can see how the organic waste from the waist like grew around and into her body. And like I find that really cool. And it kind of adds to the fact that you could tell that she's not only gone mentally insane, but she's technically gone physically insane as well. And I find that very interesting. So I say if you want a story that's, simple, gives that little bit of a Halloween vibe to it, this story is definitely for you. But if you're looking for a story that's like really, really scary and spooky, goes super, super dark into everything, which they did go kind of dark into this because, Kryrak was going to commit mass genocide, then this one, they don't go super dark into it. And if you're looking for a super dark story, this one isn't for you. I would highly suggest going into like the more main stuff. Like obviously, like there's a lot of really dark themes in the kind of the main universe of the Transformers lore. So this story, I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 because it is a really good story, and I highly suggest people read it because it is a fun story, but it's also still very simple, and it is scary per se, but it's that little bit of spooky that can get you through Halloween. But still, I'm looking for more. So I guess that's all. Happy Halloween.